Yes, Maharaj. On my end, it was on the full,
Okay.
but maybe I can check again.
No, we're good here now.
Okay, Maharaj.
Okay. Continue with
Hare-
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, Maharaj. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So, I'd like to thank you all for joining His Holiness Chandramuali Maharaj's daily online class. Thank you all for joining today. My humble obeisances to you all. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So,
Oh, praise Prabhupada, my obeisances to all the Vaishnavas.
yes, Maharaj, give me one moment. I will share the screen.
Okay. Fill it out here. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I need to, okay, we'll have to get rid of this somehow.
He's sharing the screen, Raj. So
We-
you're gonna get rid of the sidebar.
Yeah,
So like that.
that's it. Then this one here, like this guy here, that little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Teshu Yagnasya Pasavaham. Savanaspataya Kushaha. Hiram Cha Deva Yagyanam. Kalas Choru Unanvitaha. Translation. For performing sacrificial ceremonies, one requires sacrificial ingredients, such as flowers, leaves, and straw, along with the sacrificial altar and a suitable time, spring. 25. Vastayo sadaya snehaham rasaloha murdo jalham richo yagyumsi samani chaturhotram chasattama. Other requirements are utensils, grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and the 4 priests to perform the sacrifice. Purport. To perform a sacrifice successfully, at least 4 expert priests are needed. One who can offer ota, one who can chant udgata, one who can kindle the sacrificial fire without the aid of separate fire, ardvaryu, and one who can supervise Brahma. Such sacrifices were conducted from the birth of Brahma, the first living creature, and were carried on till the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira. But such expert Brahmana priests are rare in this age of corruption and quarrel, and therefore in the present age, only the yagya of chanting of the holy name is recommended. The scriptures enjoin Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Kevalam, Kalo Nastieva, 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 Gatir Anyata. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakte Bhakte Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivasesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya De Satarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bacha Hitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in each of the age of man, there are 4 ages, and there is Satya Yuga, the Golden Age, Treta Yuga, the Silver Age. Then you have Dwapara Yuga, Copper Age, and then you have Kali Yuga, the Iron Age. Each of these ages has a certain duration of time. Satya Yuga is the longest. It's 832 times 2, which is 864 times 2, which is 1,728 years. And then as the ages go down, they're reduced by 432,000 to get to the present age, which is only 432,000. And each of the ages has what is called Yuga Dharma, and there is also a personality who initiates the Yuga Dharma for that age. In the Golden Age, it was Kapila Dev, the son of Devahuti. In this age, in Treta Yuga, there is a red incarnation of the Lord, which is he was called Yagya. In the age of Dwapara Yuga, actually, it was not Vedic sacrifices, but deity worship, Panchanaratra. And I think the authority in that age was Narada Muni, which Narada Pancharatra. And in this age, the authority is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On each of the ages is a personality along with a execution of the means for self-realization in this age. Now, it's interesting that each of the ages, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra was known, but it wasn't until it came to Kali Yuga, it wasn't known as the means for self-realization. It was used alongside of the other activities, but it wasn't the main thing because there has to be some austerity attached to the Yuga Dharma. So people were so highly qualified that chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in such a yuga was so easy and simple that there was no difficulty. But because it wasn't the Yuma Darga, they focused on worshiping the Lord by the Astanga Yoga system, the Eightfold Mystic System, Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara, Pranayama, Dharani, Dhyana, and ultimately Samadhi, along with asana also. So, and meditating on the Lord within the heart for an extended period of time, drilling the respiration through the pranayama system. No one in this age can do that, even though Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that system of yoga, but it's understood that in this age, people are not qualified. So the age, the Yuga Dharma is given according to the qualification of the people, which is an austerity, but it is doable. So in this age, the austerity is to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as it's mentioned here. And even that, although it's so easy, simply all you require is an ear, 2 ears and a tongue, and you sound the names and then you hear. And then you absorb yourself into the hearing, because people are in this age are Yagyai Sankirtan. What is that verse? Manda sumanda mateo manya bhagavadutaha. People in this age are not qualified to perform spiritual activities. They are very highly unqualified for material activities. Economic development and sense gratification is the focus and the expertise in this age. and therefore spiritual life becomes difficult. Payeso yagya kalon yugamis kalon yumin sataha manda sumanda matayo manya bhagya upadutaha. People are lazy, unlucky, misguided, and quarrelsome in this age, and therefore it's very difficult even to chant Hare Krishna. Where in previous ages it was so easy that it wasn't even a consideration. Therefore, it was not the Yuga Dharma, although people did chant Hare Krishna as a form of worship, but they focused on the Yuga Dharma, as we mentioned, each of the ages. In the Treta Yuga, there was costly Vedic sacrifices to 4 priests. This is mentioned here, the priests chanting the mantras from the Vedas, and 4 priests are chanting continuously, simultaneously, each chanting a section of the Vedas as the yajna is going on. They all offer grains, gold, various precious metals, and various other ingredients into the fire. The fire is the tongue of Vishnu. The ladle is the means for offering, and the priests are chanting the mantras. And when everything is done perfectly, then everyone benefits and develops what we say Krishna consciousness or spiritual consciousness. In the next stage, deity worship was the means for self-realization. Although in this age we do deity worship, it is parallel to the chanting of the holy name. And the deity worship principles that we have are very simple and easy. As Srila Prabhupada said, he took 20% of the principles of deity worship coming from the Narada Pancharatra, the treatise that teaches how to worship the deity, and he only took 20% of that. Therefore, the other 80% was used in Dvapara Yuga. It was very difficult. One would have to chant the mantras perfectly. One would have to offer the articles perfectly. One would have to, in other words, they would have to be, everyone had to be in a mode of goodness before they could even begin doing the Yuga Dharma of deity worship. But in this age, it's chanting Hare Krishna, which is the Mahamantra, Kalir Dosha Nidhi Rajan Asti Eko Mahagu. Kirtana Eva Krishnasya Mukta Sangam Param Vajam. The means of self-realization in this age destroys all of the negative qualities of this age and elevates one's consciousness to the spiritual platform simply by hearing and chanting without offense the holy name of Krishna, like that. And we even find Srila Prabhupada would also criticize his followers. He said, it's chanting Hare Krishna is so easy and you still can't do it. So he would say that to us just to show how fallen you are. So yeah, we have no taste for chanting. And therefore, it just shows that in this age, we are not inclined to spiritual life. But if we take good association and hear regularly from the spiritual master about the process of devotional service, and with great attention and with great carefulness, both, sound the mantra very clearly and perfectly, and then gradually, as we continue in that mood, we can enter into the absorption of the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And then when we become absorbed in chanting, there is a sweet taste that develops, And that sweet taste carries us to higher and higher stages of chanting. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Yuga avatar in this age, and he is Krishna himself. He is not simply an avatar, he is the avatari, he is the source of all avatars. But he appears in this age as a devotee of the Lord to teach the process of self-realization. And he's made the process easy, as he appears only once in every 1,000 Kali Yugas. Now think about that one. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Radha Krishna himself in one manifestation, appears only once in every 1,000 Yuga cycles, which is usually 4,320,000,000 years. And so, let me see, was that right? Or 430, let's see, it's 4 billion, 4,320,000 years. So the Lord comes only once in that time period. In the other Kali Yugas, there is an incarnation of the Lord called Gaur Narayan, and he teaches worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Narayan. And therefore, the goal of that worship is only the Vaikuntha realm. In other words, the door to Goloka Vrindavan is opened up by Krishna, who appears at the end of the Dwapara Yuga once in every 4,320,000,000 years. And then Lord Chaitanya follows that incarnation. So both of these manifestations of the Lord are actually the principle of the Adi Purush, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his original form as Krishna in Vrindavan. And he only appears once in that. And then one can enter into the mood of Vrindavan through the worship of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who teaches that, through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So you might say, in one sense, although this is such a fallen age, and there's so many difficulties in this age, Kalir Dosha Nidhi, there's an ocean of faults in this age. Still, there is a lot of mercy. A lot of mercy. When Krishna was here, prior to Lord Chaitanya, he said, Sarva Dharma, Parikshit Jam, Mam Ekam, Saranam Bhajam, Aham Tvam, Sarva Pape Bhyo, Moksha Yeshyami, Masuchaha. Abandon all your ideas on how you can make spiritual advancement. That's basically what he's saying. He said, abandon all varieties of religion. So what he's saying is, abandoning all of your own conceptions on how you can become Krishna conscious, and simply surrender to me. And then in the previous verse, he gives the formula, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Mam Yaji Mam Namaskuru Mami Vaishyasi Satyam Te Pratijano Priyosi Me. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. Then he says, after saying that, he says, you'll surely come to me. Why? Because you are very dear to me. And then he gives the answer in the next verse, just give up all other ways and surrender. But after Krishna said that, there was very little, if hardly any, persons seriously taking up the words of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. So Mahaprabhu, who was also destined to come, came and made it easy. Just chant Hare Krishna and worship the Lord, and through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and offer your food and sacrifice, and then also dance when you feel happy, singing, dancing, eating, and hear about the glories of the Lord through the Shastras, through the spiritual teachers, and get an attraction for the Lord, and that will increase the quality of your chanting till you get to the stage of Sudanam, which is free from all conceptions of material existence, and one is chanting absorbedly in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So if we practice this and focus our attention on Krishna in all of our activities, then the chanting becomes so very sweet and nice. We look forward to chanting. It's not that we become burdened by the chanting or we find it difficult to chant. It may be a little difficult because the mind is chanchala. Chanchala, mana Krishna, pramati, balavadridha, tasyaham nigamam manye mayavayor idam saduskaram. So Krishna, Arjuna speaks this verse. He's saying to Krishna, you're asking me to control the mind, but I think it's impossible because to control the mind is like trying to control the wind. And Krishna agrees with him in principle, but he goes on to say that yes, what you say is true, but by practice and by giving up sense gratification, you can eventually control the mind. And then fix the mind upon Krishna in the form of his holy name. Satatam kirtayan pramam yatantrasta yadadritaha. Chant, we chant a prescribed number of rounds. The prescription of chanting is fixed in order to get the practitioner fixed in the chanting. That's why there is a numerical vow. But the numerical vow sets the standards for regular chanting, but it's not the limit, nor is it ever considered to be the limit. That's the minimum. And that's to get you connected to a regular process of chanting, which will inspire you to chant every day. As Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concludes, he says, when you chant every day, you can come to the point of chanting always, which is really the goal of chanting, to chant all the time, 24 hours a day. Of course, you might sound like it's very difficult, but through practice, one can increase gradually and chant more and more. And when you're chanting, you're connected to Krishna through the sound vibration of his name, because Nama Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Purnya Sudya Nitya Mukta, Abhinna Tvam Nami Nami No. So this Abhinna means non-different, that the holy name, he who is named and the name, the person who is being named and the name itself are identical in all respects, not partially identical, but in all aspects. The name of Krishna is fully the manifestation of the Godhead, but it's in transcendental sound. As Krishna comes in his form of the Lord, in his deity form, that's Krishna, comes in the sound. He also displays his transcendental qualities, which are all non-different than him. And then the highest and result of chanting is one can come to the platform of being absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So this is the goal of chanting, become more and more absorbed in the chanting and gradually realize Krishna in his different manifestations as the deity, his qualities, and ultimately his transcendental activities, his pastimes. So this chanting is very powerful because it's Krishna himself. And then Lord Chaitanya says, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis, the Darpita Niyamita Smartane Nakalaha, Etar Dasri Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi, Dordaiva Midrisam Mihajani Nanduragaha. That he says, no rules, no regulations, no restrictions. One can chant anytime, any place, anywhere. One should chant the principal names of Krishna, such as Krishna, Govinda, like that, that indicate his personality. And through that chanting, and then one can reach perfection. But then he said we have to very carefully avoid the offenses to chanting because they water down the effects of the chanting. And ultimately, if we continue to chant with offenses, after a while, the chanting will become very, very difficult. And sometimes people just give up the chanting because they're continuously chanting in Namaparad, and therefore there's hardly any taste to the chanting. And they think, what is this chanting? It's not the chanting, as sugar is always sweet, no matter how you explain it, it doesn't change its essence, which is sweetness. The holy name is always transcendental and full of all of the qualities of Krishna. It also has a very sweet taste to it. But when we are afflicted by the jaundice of offenses, then that sweetness is covered. So if we don't give up and continue to chant very consciously, become aware of the offenses and avoid them, and gradually we can come to the stage of chanting free from offense, which ultimately leads to the stage of pure chanting, like that. So take up this process of chanting very seriously. In principle, it's quite easy. In practice, it takes some effort. And when one should be regular in their chanting of their prescribed rounds, but we should also consider chanting as much as possible. That means whatever you're doing throughout the day, chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. These won't be counted as part of your 16 rounds, but they'll keep you connected to the transcendental qualities, names, fames, forms, pastimes of the Lord. In other words, you stay connected to Krishna simply through the process of chanting. And that's the goal. As the goal is smarnam. The goal is to always remember Krishna. Therefore, this age provides the simplest and most direct, as it says, as Lord Brahma says, as is written in the Kali Santara Upanishads, iti soda sakam nam nam, Kali Kamasandasanam, Nata Paratayo Payo, Sarva Vedashu Drishyate. After searching through all Vedic knowledge, one cannot find a more easy, sublime, and direct process of self-realization in this age of Kali than the chanting of these 16 names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna. We can open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful explanation on the holy name. So, dear devotees, we'll open up the session for Q&A. I would request if you can turn on your videos and make the session more interactive. And you can ask your question by raising your hand, or you can post your question in the chat window if you're not able to speak. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So, Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I have a question, Maharaj. You mentioned that in the previous ages, we have the Yuga Dharma established in the Kali Yuga by Gaur Narayan, and he, teaches us deity worship there. So in the other Kali Yuga, is the chanting of the holy name not the Yuga Dharma then, Maharaj?
No, Gaur Narayan appears in Kali Yuga.
Hmm.
Gaur Narayan, Golden Narayan. He appears in Kali Yuga. I'm not sure exactly what is the process. I think it's the process of worshiping the Lord in different ways. But it's not mentioned. It's simply mentioned in some of the Puranas that this personality appears. I'd have to do some research to see what is the process in those ages. But the goal of the process is simply Vaikuntha.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, another follow-up questions in what you mentioned is more sort of a practical question for myself. As you said, that it's quite difficult, but it's almost impossible to chant perfect mantras in this age. So there's always fault, and Harinam is the Yuga Dharma. So then, Maharaj, when we go to other temples of Krishna, not authentic Sri Vaishnava temples or from the four Sampradaya temples, but there are other temples in India that you go where you have deities of Radha Krishna, or maybe there is other deities there. Uh, what should be our method of if we find ourselves in a situation where you are there, what should be the correct etiquettes? Do we offer, I mean, you offer obeisances, do we follow the same process as you would do in a normal sort of authentic temple and authentic worship? How would we conduct ourselves, Maharaj, if we find ourselves in those situations?
You can respect the form of worship that's being offered there, but you can chant Hare Krishna anywhere.
Yes.
Not like you're limited because of the place. You see, if they're doing some certain kind of puja, you can also take part if the puja is actually authorized. There are certain temples that are not done according to Shastra. The Brahmins take charge of the temples and they use the temples and the deities to make a livelihood, collecting donations from the public and simply presenting the deity in different ways. But avoid those temples. But you can go to other temples that are also Krishna temples, like for instance, Udupi Krishna in Udupi.
Yes.
Yeah. So there, the deity is Krishna, and every morning they do a yagya by dressing him in different pastimes. According to a particular pastime, they'll dress him like that and decorate the whole altar that supports that particular pastime. And that whole yagya takes hours. They bathe the deity, they dress the deity, they offer, and then they decorate the deity. So one can take darshan of the deity as this worship is going on. But in that temple, there's also an area for kirtan. So when we go, we set up kirtan there, and everyone is happy. And they don't stop us from doing kirtan. In fact, they like it. Because they know that kirtan is also the means into self-realization. Although within the temple there, the priests perform the dressing program like that. Worship, doing archie like that. So we do temple worship too, but it's not the Yoga Dharma. It's meant to purify one's consciousness and elevate one's consciousness to the mode of goodness. And then the mode of goodness, we can easily chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If we're affected by the lower modes, passion and ignorance, chanting becomes more difficult. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada said 2 transcendental tracks on the train. That means deity worship or Pancharatriki Vidi and Bhagavad Vidi. Bhagavad Vidi means hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and worshiping the Lord through Srimad Bhagavatam. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhakti bhagavati naistiki. So these 2 processes are side by side in ISKCON, in our worship. And it's in the Madhva Gaudiya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is our Sampradaya. But when it comes right down to what the means for self-realization is, Harinam, Kalir Doshanidi Rajan. No, let me see, not that verse. Kali Kale, Namarupa, Krishna Avatar, Namohoite Haya Sarva Jagat Nishtara. That Krishna has come in the form of his name. He is the incarnation. His name is an incarnation of him in this age. So when people say, well, in previous age, the Lord appeared in a personal form. Yes, he stayed mostly throughout most of the age in that particular form. But here, where is he in this age? Well, he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, But how do we worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? We worship him by chanting Hare Krishna. Now that's the means for self-realization in this age. Chant, chant, chant. Can't, can't. No time. Prabhupada was in Delhi before he came to America. He put together his Back to Godhead newspaper, which at that time was only 1 or 2 pages. It started in 1944 during the war. And he used to sell his little 1 or 2 page discussion on some transcendental topic. Personally, he would write it, take it to the printer, have it printed, and pick it up and carry it himself and go from place to place, approaching people. Can you give 1 or 2 pice? Like that. And Prabhupada did that. And then many times, as Prabhupada explained, he would hear people say, well, Swamiji, what you're doing is very nice, but we have no time. We have no time. And then one Prabhupada decided to write one headline article in the upcoming edition called No Time. Time for everything, but not Krishna. So, this is the disease in this age. No time. Because if the more time you give, the easier it becomes, the more natural it becomes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for clarifying that. Rishabh Prabhu, you have your hands raised, so please go ahead. And then Amritanam Mataji, you will be the second. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, dear Gurudev, Vaishnavas, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you very much, Gurudev. In Sankirtan, and they say we don't have time, we tell them the time is only thing you have, actually. You're just spending it wrongly. But they still don't stop, but at least we know the answer to that question or to that statement. And really thank you very much for the emphasizing how much, even though it's Yuga Dharma, it's so simple just to chant and hear, still our brains are so dull, so destroyed, and especially in the lately with all this artificial viral sense gratification that just destroys it fully. The young people are so on the mental platform, so much. They are so. I think that they never actually know what is not to be spaced out. They are just more spaced out or less spaced out. And we have many devotees, and I found myself a lot of times as well trying to chant, but the mind is kind of building up some mental space around the chanting, and in the end, it's like just hard to chant. So, do you have any maybe practical advice when this kind of a situation happens that we are chanting and we notice that we became spaced out and the mind is becoming heavy on us? How to kind of stop that process and continue chanting nicely?
Well, that's mentioned in Nectar of Instructions, verse number 7, which I brought it up recently a few times, where it says that the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is very sweet, but one who is afflicted by the disease of jaundice cannot taste the sweetness. But if one continues to chant carefully, one who chants very carefully, gradually that sweetness will start to return and the disease will be eliminated. So careful chanting, in other words, when you find yourself getting lost in the mind, just slow down and get back to that name. You might have to slow down in the speed of your chanting so you can again reconnect with the sound. We have a tendency when we start going into the mental sphere, we're chanting, but we're not really listening. Therefore, we're not even monitoring how fast we're going. We could be going slow, we could be going fast, we don't even know. But then when we somehow or other get out of that mind space, we can hear. So then slow down. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So chant like that at the beginning, so you can build your consciousness in absorption. And then gradually, as you move in that mood, your attention will become more and more regular, like that. And be very conscious of the process of hearing, because if you're not hearing, then you're going to be listening to the sound of the mind telling you, what's for breakfast? What do you got to do later? This guy said something about yesterday, and I forgot to respond to him in the right way. I hope I meet him again so I can tell him what I really think. And so, and there's a whole unlimited stockpile of ideas that flood into the mind. That's why Arjuna said to control the mind is like controlling the wind. And Krishna said, yeah, you're right. But constant practice and then giving up sense gratification has to be there too, because if we continue to hold on to our material desires and at the same time chant, well, it will be very difficult, practically impossible to chant attentively, because those material desires will appear while you're chanting, because the process of chanting is the process of purification of the heart. And as the heart becomes purified through the chanting, these desires come foremost into the mind. And then you have to let them go rather than try to analyze them or think about them in any way. Chanting is like transforming butter into ghee. And this is a very good analogy. The fire is the holy name, but the fire is a slow flame. You put the butter on the slow flame, and if you put it on too fast of a flame, it won't separate. It'll just coagulate. Put it on very slow, and what happens? The fatty substance, the impurities, float to the top, and they also stay at the bottom. And in the middle is the clear, pure liquid, which is called ghee. And then, in order to finally purify it, you skim off the impurities at the top and you remove it, and then you have ghee. So in the same way, chant nicely, carefully, and as these thoughts appear in the mind, let them go. Don't think about them and go back to hearing the sound. And they'll continue to come, but keep rejecting them. And once you connect solidly with the sound, then it becomes normal, and the mind will be your friend at that time. It's just you and Krishna. Then you have to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Don't expect success as soon as you begin. And be very conscious of where your mind is going while you're chanting. And then bring it back to the sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. That's why it is deemed or called japa meditation or mantra meditation. It's not just chanting, it is a meditation on the sound. As all forms of self-realization contain the process of absorption into one aspect of Krishna. So in this aspect, it's the sound of his name. Others, it was his transcendental form. So, but each of these forms of practice is a kind of meditation on the Lord himself. In this age, it's his name. And you don't have to surreptitiously put the thoughts of Krishna in your mind, it'll happen automatically. If you're chanting nicely.
And Maharaj, when you say sense gratification, because we are grossly attached to it, it's not easy just to kind of let it go. We have to regulate it first. So that's why this regulation is so important for us, and to have a regulated life, to have this kind of brings us to the point where we are able to to reduce and minimize the sense gratification and increase the spiritual aspect of our lives.
It increases the ability to concentrate through regulated life.
Yeah.
Krishna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. By regulating the mind, one can overcome. By what is that verse? It's in the third chapter.
Eating, sleeping.
No. Arjuna says, Arjuna asks the question. I think it's 334, 335. Maybe you can turn to that. 334.
Yes, I'm trying.
Important verse.
I'm having some technical difficulties, Maharaj, bringing the browser. So I'm just resetting it. Give me one moment.
Okay,
Doesn't
maybe I can find it on my phone here.
it seems like not many devotees find this kind of important, this regulation. They're usually, or really absorbed in their careers, families, and then sometimes they put bhakti and then they focus on bhakti, but they skip this middle part of regulation, and they struggle a lot jumping from, fully material to, fully some spiritual. It's
Well, Bhagavad
Mogatyaga, yeah, right. So it's just not stable, and even many young devotees I see they even think that this is spirituality, just jumping, to some realizations, just then falling down. Then, they think this is spirituality. It's Anishtita Bhakti.
Here it is. It's 336. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Krishna responds in the next verse. It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion, and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. And Krishna says, as fire is covered by smoke, as mirror is covered by dust, as the embryo is covered by womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of lust. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Then Krishna goes on to say, the mind, the intelligence are the sitting place, and the senses are the sitting place of lust. And then Krishna answers it, O Arjuna, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of lust, sin, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So regulating the senses, this helps to control the senses. The senses are you're either controlling the senses or you're controlled by the senses. Go das and go swami. One is controlled by the senses, the other one is controller of the senses. So regulation helps to guide the mind and senses in the direction you want to go. Without a regulated lifestyle, then whatever the mind dictates, whatever the sense objects attract, then one is drawn to that. And they're like, we might say, they're like a leaf in the wind. As the wind blows, the leaf flies in that direction. You have no place anywhere. So one has to practice this regulated lifestyle. So regulation is very important. You do the same thing every day at the same time, and that helps to regulate the senses and mind. And if there is some consideration of time and place, one may also use that, but then eventually one will go back to their regulated schedule, the first chant they get. So practice regulation, getting up at the certain time, eating at the same time, performing your activities at the same time, worshiping at the same time. And that way the mind and senses are focused according to the type of activity for a particular time of the day. That's easy when you live in the temple.
Mhm.
When you don't live in the temple, it is required, then you have to set your own standard of regulation. And then that requires some effort. And then you have to figure out how to get support for that so you don't become deviated so easily. So it's harder when you're living outside. But when you're living in a temple, it becomes a lot easier. As Prabhupada used the example, you're trading on the stock market. So those who are there right on the stock exchange, they're fully engaged in the trading. And as soon as the market changes, they trade and buy and trade and buy, trade and buy. So they're right there. And those who also play the stock market outside of the stock exchange, they can do the same thing, but they don't have the same advantage as those who are staying right near the stock market or in the exchange themselves. So that example teaches us that the more you're in association with devotees, the more it easier is to regulate your activities like that. But of course, most of us are grihastas. We live with family members. We also have to have a regulated life. Because if you don't, then the mind will take you wherever it wants to go. Unless you're very, very diligent and have purified the mind to a certain degree, then you can keep it from focused in any situation you're in. So temple life is conducive to mind control, sense control, and avoiding pitfalls that come by way of association with the material energy. But make your home a temple and live according to a regulated schedule also.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this. I think you mentioned a very important point that all the activities in the Grihasthas needs to be regulated, and for that it requires a lot of effort for that compared to the temple environment. Yes.
If you plan, the best thing to do is in the morning when you get up, just plan your whole day. Sit down, write down what you're going to do according to the time frames that you want to do them in. Don't just let things happen. Actually understand how long you're going to chant, how long you're going to read, what time you're going to take breakfast, what time you're going to go to work, what time you're going to take care of the kids, whatever, it's all can be done in an organized way. There is some leeway because it's not easy to get it exact, but you work at it, then you'll find then you're in control rather than being controlled.
Yes, Maharaj. Mritanam Mataji, do you want to go ahead with your question?
That's why they say if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. A person who doesn't do much, when you ask them, they have no time because they don't know how to use time. But a person who is busy, they're regulated. They know how to use the time and they get a lot of things done. For instance, I use an example. When should you answer your phone? Every time it rings? Hare Krishna. Good luck. You have a time for receiving calls, a time for responding to calls. And then there are certain calls that cannot be neglected. Then you respond to those. But then there's always a time. The people in the corporate world, they're very regulated because they have to be in order to get the maximum time for doing their work. We can learn from them. But temple life ultimately is the ideal system of regulation. So, but you can create it in the family too, if you work at it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Amrita Nam, she does a lot. You get so much done, but she's very regulated.
Krishna Maharaj, with your mercy, I'm trying to manage, I'm trying to regulate, I'm trying to accommodate my services, so which is very important for me. So yeah. My humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for again telling us the importance of regulation of life for betterment of our bhakti life. And the analogy of ghee was really helpful and interesting. It really makes sense to go slow.
Oops.
I think we lost her.
She's back. Yeah.
Okay.
You got disconnected, Mataji. You can repeat your question.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question was, we do indirect preaching and we do direct preaching. So when we are indulged in the services where we do indirect preaching, so is it necessary for us to try and endeavor to go to the direct preaching from indirect?
What would be an example of indirect preaching?
Like we are not in direct contact with the new coming people to interact with them and bringing them to the temple to devotional life, but we are in indirect preaching, like in the backhand where we are cooking or where we are doing something else which supports the direct preaching.
Yeah. So both of them are important. So you have to see what works best for you.
So is it necessary, if we are in the indirect part, is it necessary for us to eventually come to the direct part?
I think everybody should do a little bit of both. And it won't work. You might say indirect preaching might be more, but every once in a while it's nice. Not once in a while, in a regulated way, to give a class or to interact with people on a personal level. That helps you to learn how to deal with people and how to present Krishna consciousness in different situations. It's good training. Like what they do in temples is they usually let everyone do a little book distribution. Now that book distribution may not be that person's service, but everyone should experience that just to get a taste for and an understanding of how to give Krishna consciousness to others through books. It's good training. Some nice training, and it helps to develop personal relationships, and it also gives you an opportunity to speak directly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who does book distribution will be that be their main service.
Okay, thank you, Guru Maharaj. That quite clarifies much. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I have about 10 more minutes before I have to depart, so we can continue.
Thank you, Maharaj. We got a question from Shilpesh Prabhu. Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, in this age, we purify our hearts and minds by chanting the Maha Mantra. So, in a Treta Yuga where they offered sacrifices and did yagna, how does that purify one?
Well, the mantras are chanted from the Vedas. The priests are chanting ideally. And Swaha, and then the offering is going into the fire. The fire is the tongue of Vishnu. And the ingredients are being offered. It's all part of the Vedic system. What we read today, as far as that verse, is very much analogous to that type of yajna. But that's not mentioned, and that's not for this age. As Prabhupada writes in that purport, it's practically impossible to find qualified priests in this age who can chant the Vedic mantras purely. Because if they make any slight error in the chanting, the whole yajna is destroyed. It's useless.
So, in that age, if you were a bystander at the yagna, you would benefit from what the priests are doing. Is that correct?
Yeah, those who take part in the yajna and those who even observe the yajna also become purified. Because Vishnu is there in the form of the fire. Vishnu manifests himself in the fire, and what is being offered into the fire is the offering to the Lord. And the mantras are being chanted. Not only are the mantras being chanted, there are also people who are reading at the same time. They're reading from the different Vedas, like that. So you have many people, those who are chanting the mantras, doing the yajna, those who are reading the different Vedas at the same time that the yajna is all going on. So it's a transcendental sound that encompasses the whole atmosphere. One gets locked up into that sound vibration. Om Vishnu Padam Padam. I'm not so good at chanting Vedic mantras. Om Purnam Madaham Purnamidam Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. They don't just say it, they chant it with power, with emphasis, with depth of devotion. Om Vishnu Padam Padam Tara Tara. I can't remember that particular prayer. What is that verse? I mean, all the verses in the Bhagavatam, if we just chant them with great feeling, Amaninam Amanadena Kirtaniya Sadarahi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Not just Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yeah. Not like that. So what does that mantra mean? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That was the Maha Mantra in the previous age to Purva Yuga. People would chant that as the Maha Mantra. So what does it mean? Who knows? Let's see who knows. What does that mantra say?
Is it I'm bowing to the Supreme Lord Vasudeva?
Say again?
I'm bowing to the Supreme Lord Vasudeva.
That's part of it, but not the whole thing. Yeah. I offer my respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, who is situated everywhere. That's the translation of the mantra. So we invoke that mantra every time we begin Bhagavatam class or any class. Why do we chant these mantras? For auspiciousness. When Prabhupada would give the Bhagavatam class, he would encourage all the devotees to respond to the chanter who was chanting the verse. He says the lines, you repeat. He says the next line, you repeat. He goes through the mantra, you repeat, and then you also chant. You also chant. So Prabhupada really encouraged the devotees to take part in the chanting, not simply the person who's doing the class, he chants and no one else chants. No. Sometimes the chanting would last 10, 15 minutes before the class would even begin. And that sound vibration just purifies the atmosphere and brings one into the consciousness of hearing transcendental knowledge. Sound is powerful. Mantra is powerful. There's mantras for everything. Mantra is actually the means to achieve everything. You know mantra, you can get anything you want through mantra. Because ultimately we want Krishna, so we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But the Vedas are full of mantras. The Rig Veda, Shama Veda, not Dharva, but the Shrik, Shama, and the Yajur Veda, just mantras, songs, prayers, that's all chanted with great feeling and depth.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just listen to Prabhupada's classes. You can see how he would have Pradyumna chant the verse, and then the devotees would respond, and then the devotees one at a time, first the men and then the women would chant the verses. Sometimes it would go on for 10 minutes. And that energy just builds around that sound vibration, because these verses are transcendental, pure spiritual sound. Everything's based on sound. I'm talking, you're hearing. That's sound. If I wasn't talking, there would be no hearing and there would be no communication. And when communication comes in the form of sound, that sound causes the mind to absorb the sound, and then there's thoughts, there is reactions, there is realizations, all through sound. You see, if you go through Prabhupada's Veda base, there is a whole section, Prabhupada's just chanting mantras, that's all. He chants Chaitanya Charitamrita, whole chapters. He chants Krishna book. Chants Bhagavatam. Just chanting is nice, practice that. And it just purifies the mind. The mind becomes really, what we say, full of transcendental knowledge. Not just for men, it's for everyone. Oh. That's the beach mantra, the seed mantra for the all mantras. Om.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Vedandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om. Om starts all Vedic mantras are prefaced by the sound vibration Om. Yes, Srimati.
Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you all. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for such a wonderful class. I have a question. Usually, we know the importance of the holy name and chanting seriously or attentively, but most of the time focusing on the services we are doing, filling the whole day with grihastha responsibilities and duties and other services. That will become the prominent thing in our life, in my life exactly. So I want to go deep into Krishna consciousness, but I feel some blockages or obstacles, or I'm not able to do what I want exactly in some situations or most of the time. So should I wait patiently for the time to come, or should I consciously change everything around me?
You should emphasize what you want to do. At the same time, take care of your immediate responsibilities, but give time for developing that consciousness in the other area that you're trying to go into. If you wait, what are you going to wait for? Nothing will change by waiting.
Mm.
Yeah, so just give yourself enough time. That's all. And practice that. Just like if you want to, you have to, in order to chant, you have to give sufficient time for the chanting in order for the chanting to develop. Same way, if you want to move into a certain area, give some emphasis to that area and de-emphasize other areas. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to adjust your schedule or work within the present schedule to see how you can fit it in.
Mm.
But you should never be discouraged because anything in Krishna consciousness comes by practice. If you want to be a great scholar of knowledge, study, read. If you want to preach, read. Prabhupada said, preacher means reader. Read, and you'll eventually start developing the mood of speaking what you hear, and that'll turn into preaching Krishna consciousness.
Yes, Maharaj. So I want to seek the association of devotees who want to go deep into Krishna consciousness, but I see the devotees around me. They are all like me only, like always busy in services. They don't have time. They don't have time to give each other or discuss or like that. So should I make some endeavor to seek association outside of my community? That's what
Yeah.
I.
Wherever you can find that association that resonates with what you're trying to accomplish, you should seek that out. Yeah, for sure. You don't have to limit yourself to your local, what's available there.
Okay.
There are people who are like you. You just have to find them.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately I have another engagement coming up and it's very
Thank you so much.
soon.
Thank you, Maharaj. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Samaveta bhakta vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.